Hey everyone, we're back with another in the series of primers, I suppose, for how your faction might be influenced by the new changes in what we're calling Old World 1.5, the FAQ, the errata, and some balance changes that were made to sort of coincide with the match play guide that came out from GW not long ago. It certainly revolutionized the way we play the game. Even though the changes are small, they are numerous, and in my mind, the game feels completely different when you play it. So I guess today we're looking at one of the armies that was considered top of the metagame, and especially in real life. Online, it hasn't done so well, but Bretonnia has been a staple, if not the staple, of tournament success since the old world came out. I think some of the places that do statistics, like Malign Musings and Old World Rankings, have Bretonnia at the top in terms of win rate. However, online, while they have been successful, they haven't been able to break through, and Tomb Kings and even Vampire Counts now are probably in that top tier of armies. So, really want to look at today just, I think Bretonnia got better, not worse, and how that looks. It probably changes the way Bretonnian armies come together, but at the same time, it wasn't the nerf people might have been looking for, even if on the surface there were a few aspects that seemed that way. So, before we begin, I just want to thank our sponsors again, or supporters: Go Silver Dave, Sick, Pan and Wargaming, Kitro, Gomo. Thank you for everything. If you want to help us out, you can become a member through Patreon, we prefer, or thank us with the super thanks button on this channel. You can also take part in the Discord or comment here. And as I've said in a few videos recently, I feel like a lot of the comments have become much more positive in the sense that like we're all trying to figure out how this game works, and a lot of it is new to different people, and there are going to be lots of different opinions. And Warhammer is a game that sort of gets played after the game as well and keeps people interested. Maybe they're bored at work or scrolling to their phone, but we're always happy to hear your thoughts, and we learn a lot too, correcting some of the mistakes we make in the videos that we put out. So, to get back to it, as we've been doing, we sort of identify 5 units and then maybe a sixth unit that we're unsure about at this stage. And to me, it really is peasants, 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 peasants. So the changes to infantry are a big deal, but Bretonnia, while Pegasus Knights, and we'll get to that, and Pegasus in general, are have capture all the headlines for the Bretonnians and their characters. I do think that the infantry has been undercosted as well. And with the two release armies, Tomb Kings and Bretonnia, it's very hard to argue that they're not, there isn't some sort of bias in the points to them. You can make comparisons between units where you're literally just getting more for the same cost in those armies. So where I want to start is with mounted yeomen. These are probably a bit of a surprise to some people, but the reality here is that fast cavalry is also really great at scoring. When you can get them in core, as you can in exiles, they're going to be fantastic. And on top of that, the reserve move is one of the most powerful abilities in the game because you can take a character that and add it to the unit and still use the reserve move function of the unit. That's not always the case with something like countercharge, where the character has to bring it in themselves. But the mounted yeomen are very cheap. You can get 5 light armor and shield, feign flight for 100 points or so. So where you can get them in core, they're really good. Where you can't get them in core, I still think they're okay. But in this core scoring world, when we're talking about whether Exiles or Grand Army is still the best version of Bretonnia, I think being able to take Mounted Yeoman in core is a big deal. On top of that, though, Men-at-Arms or Yeoman Guard in Exiles are also extraordinary. So really, you're getting them for about 4 points each, but you can give them pole arms, which I like, for 5. They cost next to nothing. So with the need to score now as a core unit, you can get them very cheaply, and they can get onto a spot and hopefully stay there. The thing that makes that possible is that you can get shield ball for starters. Then on top of that, you're also able to put double stubborn in the unit essentially. Like you've got the Grail, you can put the Grail Monk in, giving the unit stubborn, and then you can add a champion who can take that first hit. So depending on, you've got these chances. Stubborn to me is a really powerful ability, but it's even more powerful when you don't have to lose that first combat and you're able to, like you might have with Men at Arms, and I'll look at this in a set, I'll run through this in a minute. but you can look at res and having high res, and sometimes you just win. Characters come in, they whiff, you've got +6 or something like that, and then you're able to not even have to use that stubborn until later. So men at arms, I think, are the biggest winner out of these peasant units. I do like mounted yeomen. I think they're really good, and I tend to point towards exiles, which will come out a little bit later in the video, but I think that men at arms, which you can play them as yeoman guard in exiles, but in regular rank and file are auto include every time. You're getting about 20 for 200 points. You can take 30 if you want, and probably can't kill them all. So on top of that, while you can't take the war banner, oh no, you can take the war banner on the yeoman guard. If you can get up to that, you're going to find close order. You're going to find the ranks. I can't remember, sorry, if they do have Horde, but you're going to find that that res gets up there, sort of like the Empire State Troops Griffin standard block. Maybe not as extreme as that, but you're able to get them going to a point where they're going to be very difficult to come in with one unit to beat. And on top of that, then it's sort of like a waste of time for multiple units to have to hit a men-at-arms unit. What they're able to soak up for the amount of points they cost is extreme in terms of the metagame, and I would expect everyone to be playing them who plays Bretonnia. To the right of that, you have archers. Now, archers come in different shapes and form, but again, super cheap, able to take full command if you need to. And you've got the variance between, well, that where I've put a video out talking about skirmish slash open order and how that gives these chaff units a lot of flexibility. So as units of 10 skirmish, they benefit from all those skirmish rules. Longbows are incredible because you can zone your opponent shooting. So you can be sitting back from warbows or God forbid, uh, short bows and pretty much just pick targets off so that then when you come forward, you're able to take space because they just can't mount the amount of firepower back. So just like in the Middle Ages, the longbow is incredible in Warhammer with its 30-inch range or 32 if you're playing Wood Elves. Beyond that, though, you can sort of rank them up and put things like I think these are called what are the stakes called? I'll have to look it up exactly. What in front, so disrupting an opponent now is huge because this res on res battle is going to be a big deal. So if you're able to put the stakes out in front of your unit, while they can't really move from that position, if they're back far enough, you can keep shooting and then later in the game come forward to take an objective. And for 10 for 50, it's very easy to get a lot down on the table. So even multiple units, which some people have been playing in version 1 of the old world. So here, like I think bowmen are another big winner. It's very unusual. Like Bretonnia doesn't seem to be moving towards more knights, which is what everyone wants. While you have to take one unit of Knights of the Realm or Knights on foot, you have to. I think you want to be spending these points on this infantry to score on core. So you're probably going to make the best out of a Knights of the Realm unit. You can add a lot of res to that with a BSB and War Banner again in Lance formation, but it's been a sad state of affairs for Bretonnian lorists in the sense that in this metagame, the knights have slowly seemed to have been pushed to the side, and it's the peasantry and peg knights, which we'll talk about, which sort of do the heavy lifting. So where I'd be going with this is that you're going to see Bretonnia, I think, as good as ever, but the makeup of the armies is going to look quite different. And we've already seen one game in our local group with a heavy peasantry list, and it won very strongly. So, and I think Paddy might talk about this later, but he found it almost impossible to chew through the large numbers of peasants that were able to put on the table in a 2,000 point game. So, moving on from that, I also think damsels are a big winner, not prophetesses, but damsels. The prophetesses are still going to be okay, but I think there's two reasons here. Firstly, a damsel can add magic resistance 2 to any unit that has the knightly vow. So on horseback, taking up space in for 80 points, you can have a level 1 who's going to give the unit magic resistance 2. A lot of Bretonnian players are already eschewing magic in great numbers, and so I'm not sure you need that level 3 Dispeller. You've got at least Dushard if you want to take that angle, who's exceptional in that capacity. But on top of that, I think the second reason is that Offensively, I'm not sure that Bretonnian magic is really that great. So what you have, like you can take a level 3, maybe you get elementalism. There's things that can help, but for the amount of points, are you better off just spending them on fighty characters? So with the damsel, you can add that in, give the unit magic resistance 2. It can retire from combat. And I really like level ones in this format because you can control what spell they get with the signatures. And Bretonia has one really good one for a level 1, and the others are not so bad, even if you wanted to take a chance. So the Lady's Grace, or the one that gives regeneration on a 7, or a 6 plus regeneration on a 7, or 5 plus regeneration on a 10, is fantastic. So if you're looking at an army, while I lean towards exiles, if you're looking at uh, Grand Army or Errantry Crusade, and you've got that 5 plus ward up already, you're generally running around with 3 plus armor saves in a knight unit, even the knights on foot with their parry. You can then add this regeneration on top. And to me, triple saves are one of the vectors of brokenness in this game. If you can put a triple save on a big block of infantry or on a monstrous mount, it's very difficult for your opponent to get through the probabilities and kill them. So, and get points. So I really like damsels. I really like them on war horses so that you still have counter charge for the unit. And to slot them in, they're going to retire in combat. They're going to add unit density so you can get up to sort of lance formations or and hide them in the back if they need to go into combat. And I think, I'm not sure how this works, but look, if you need unit strength 10 for scoring in a knight unit, does the damsel add her unit strength while it's within the unit? That would be interesting to know the answer to if anyone out there knows already. So yeah, big fan of damsels. I'd be looking at taking level 1 damsels over the level 3s at this stage, and probably hopefully maybe putting in Sacrament of the Lady for +2, but Bretonians have fantastic magic items across the board. That takes me to my 5th unit that I think improves a lot. There's a picture of Knights Errant because really this is Errantry Crusade that I think is back on the table. So the removal of the big disadvantage with Impetuous has made Errantry Crusade really good, in the sense that you're not rolling all these leadership tests. And one of the weaknesses of Bretonnia is they are still humans. So you have to roll a lot of leadership tests for psychology, and that can tank you sometimes without having to add that extra leadership test, getting veteran anyway to re-roll it now. Veteran is one of the underrated. Veteran is one of the comboiest abilities out there. So restraining and reforming is the most powerful thing you can do as a hammer unit in the game, in my mind. I've talked about this in the last battle report with the Star Dragon Prince in High Elves being so much better than the Archmage because it can just reform over and over on its leadership 10. If I could re-roll it and guarantee it, it'd be unstoppable. With Veteran, you can do that and you can add characters to those units that benefit from that as well. So while that's in Exiles, who get stubborn too, what Errantry Crusade brings is you get a whole raft of new magic items as well. Exiles have Frontier Axe, they've got Lucky Heirloom, they've got their good stuff, but with the nerf to the Vanguard banner, you might want to look at, well, are Errantry Crusade just good as well? They've got a bunch of things that you want to look at where you can add to these units and things like +1 strength on the attack. You can add different banners and weapons that are, I mean, on just the chassis of Bretonnia being amazing to start with, they just put you over the top because even their magic items are probably undercosted compared to other armies out there. So in this case, you do have to take 2 units of Knights Errant, but they have gotten a lot better. And you'll see, otherwise, you're not really losing a lot because you can take a Duke in this list, which you can't take in Exiles. So if your Duke is able to benefit here, bringing the Grail Vow with him to be able to then push out that benefit where they can re-roll ones to hit, I believe, or the very minimum they're getting that +1 on their charge range on top of already being Bretonnian warhorses. I think you're going to see a lot of people try to play Errantry Crusade more, especially it sort of hits a theme people like. I know the Crusades in general are highly controversial, but there's a sort of, I guess, echo, especially in an English game and coming through like the mythology of Robin Hood. I think people really love the idea of Crusaders and want to put that forward. And you're seeing online some of these models already having success. So I think the 5 locks for me The peasantry, men-at-arms, bowmen, mounted yeomen, if you can get them in exiles, they're really good units on their own, and they've just gotten a lot better with the changes to scoring. I think the damsels should be auto-include into your knight units for 80 points. You can really buff them up and make them much more invulnerable to enemy attack. I think Errantry Crusade is going to get another look in, as it doesn't really lose anything and is now gaining a lot back with the changes. But the asterisk, as usual, is reserved here for Pegasus Knights or Lords. And did they get any worse with the changes? And if anything, I don't think so. I think they're as good as ever. So now you have to pay more for a Royal Pegasus. You have to pay more for Pegasus Knights. On this channel, sometimes we talk about Pegasus Knights not really like being so underrated. Well, not so underrated. They are so overrated that they're a little bit underrated at times. But on top of that, people sort of mistake how good they are in combat. I think on their own, they're not as good as people think. It's that mobility to be able to pick weaker targets. Of course, they have a bunch of ridiculous rules like Furious Charge, two wounds. When you've got a ward save up, extraordinary. They're very difficult to take down at range with the skirmish rules. They can hide and then charge 19 inches. But I think you're just sending them into a combat unit is not gonna, you're not always gonna hit well. Like they are still humans and Pegasi are not, they're not the strongest things going around, even though they sort of seem about as maxed out as you could make a model like that in Warhammer. However, the characters are for sure. And you've got your Knightly Templar character, Baron or Duke, who's outrageous in the output that they have. And when they are floating around outside of the Pegasus unit, but benefiting from the same unit subtype being nearby for magic missiles, sorry, for targeting, they are outrageous because you can sort of shepherd them in and then boom, hit a variety of different targets, and that Knightly Temper character can take out units by itself. On top of that, the Monster Slayer character, yes, probably best on a peg, but at the same time, because it can now get 2+ save, that in itself is a bit more of a deterrence and a threat. I think it's still probably less than 50-50 against a triple warded dragon, especially the ones like Opal Amulet ones at High Elves, where you can sort of roll a 2+ against that 6 Monster Slayer and survive. But still, those two virtues are so extreme that they dwarf other ones like Virtue of the Ideal and Virtue of Duty that are quite good on their own. I think pegs are as good as ever, sadly. And in one way, they're one of the broken elements of the game where any sort of 360 charge arc, I don't think it belongs in Warhammer. I think a rank and flank game should be about the front arc and your arcs rather than this 360 squad game mindset. But at the same time, they do provide some sort of counterbalancing in the format to dragons or things like screams in VC and Tomb Kings because they're sort of like the rush army of the format if you've ever played something like Magic or Dota and you've got beatdown tactics here. So I think just in general, you see a lot of players play it suboptimally where they treat the Lord or the Baron who's hitting hard and the pegs as the sort of main hammer unit. What the best way to play the pegs is to sort of use their high mobility to pick off easy targets, hit other easy reform. Well, they don't even need to reform with 360 line of sight, but not overrun. And you're just being cautious about those overrun pathways where you can hit a unit really hard that can't take it, they run or they break. Then you hit another unit, and you leave those huge units alone because they can't catch you if they try to get you to. With the changes to infantry, that's going to be even worse for units where if their dragon can't get in contact with your pegs, it's not such a great deal to just go and smash a unit of men at arms anymore because you could get caught in a combat through a challenge that you can't win and outnumber. So I think in that sense, pegs just as good as ever. I think for this cycle of Old World, having a dragon Peg Lord Scream slash Tomb Kings or Undead meta game is not so bad. Like it's better than having one at the top. And you're starting to see other, like with all the changes to 1.5, who knows what can sort of enter that rarefied air up there. Hearthstone's been really good for Beastmen. The Dwarf changes are very big in the sense that all of their units or infantry get a lot better. And then orcs and goblins have been pretty good for a while. Empire have received some pretty big buffs. So as long as you got a dragon with high elves and wood elves, you still got and dark elves even, you still got a chance. Warriors of Chaos has always been pretty sound. So the metagame's in pretty good shape. To mine, Bretonnia still got better, but everything got better in a way. Like all of the units that weren't being played before got a lot better if they were infantry or core, particularly. And pegs are probably as good as ever. The points costs are negligible, but for how people like to play Britannia, I think you're going to see some of those armies start to shift away from, if they were already moving away from small units of knights or lots of bowmen, they're going to come towards that idea of playing bowmen and men-at-arms and having a peasantry core with one unit of knights, a bunch of pegs, and the peg characters. And whether that's with exiles, getting bombards, whether it's Grand Army to max out your Duke and do things like maybe you want to take Grail Knights, I'm not sure, but or the Errantry Crusade, which I think will come back, will probably be what people trial first. It'll be interesting to see. Let us know your thoughts. We're going to continue to do this with each of the supported armies and finish that off. We've picked the earliest ones are the ones we were most familiar with or we felt were the most obvious. And as we get to the last few, we're very interested in what people say because we're not so sure on how they'll play out as easily. Thanks again for your time, guys. We'll see you next time.